Elijah Jackson sat by his bedroom window, his eyes fixed on the sky. The faint hum of a jet engine echoed in the distance, and his heart raced as he spotted the sleek silhouette of a Boeing 787 cutting through the clouds. He could identify the plane just by the sound of its engines, a skill he had honed over years of obsession with aviation. At 16, Elijah was no ordinary teenager. His room was a shrine to his passion. Airplane models lined the shelves, posters of iconic aircraft adorned the walls, and stacks of flight manuals and aviation magazines cluttered his desk. But it wasn't just a hobby for Elijah, it was a dream of one day becoming a pilot and soaring through the skies himself. Elijah's love for aviation had been nurtured by his father, David Jackson, a high-ranking administrator at the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA). David had always been Elijah's biggest supporter, encouraging his son's passion and teaching him everything he knew about planes. Elijah remembered the first time his father took him to Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C. on his 6th birthday. It was a surprise tour arranged by David, who had just landed a significant position at the FAA. Elijah's eyes had widened as he stood beneath the wing of a massive Boeing 777, marveling at its sheer size and power. That day, as he watched the plane take off, Elijah felt something ignite within him, a burning desire to conquer the skies. From that moment on, Elijah's life revolved around aviation. He spent hours drawing intricate schematics of airplane controls, memorizing the specifications of different aircraft, and practicing takeoffs and landings on his flight simulator software. His father often joked that Elijah's room looked more like a mini aviation museum than a teenager's bedroom. But David never discouraged his son's passion. Instead, he nurtured it, patiently answering Elijah's endless questions and sharing stories from his own career in aviation. "Elijah," David would say, "the sky is limitless. If you work hard and stay focused, there's nothing you can't achieve." Those words became Elijah's mantra, driving him to excel in everything he did. Despite facing occasional skepticism from others who doubted that a black teenager from a modest background could aspire to become a pilot, Elijah remained undeterred. He knew his dream was within reach, and he was determined to prove the naysayers wrong. One day, Elijah stumbled upon an announcement for Horizon Airlines' Career Exploration Program, a prestigious initiative designed to introduce young students to the world of aviation. The program offered hands-on experience, mentorship from industry professionals, and a chance to tour the inner workings of an airline. For Elijah, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. He immediately began working on his application, pouring his heart into the essay that would determine his fate. The essay prompt was simple yet profound. What does aviation mean to you? And how do you see yourself contributing to its future? Elijah spent weeks crafting his response, drawing on his personal experiences, his father's guidance, and his unwavering passion for flying. He wrote about the first time he saw a plane take off, the countless hours he spent on flight simulators, and his dream of one day piloting a commercial aircraft. He poured his soul into every word, determined to make his essay stand out among the hundreds of submissions. When the day of the results arrived, Elijah was a bundle of nerves. He couldn't bring himself to open the email, so his father did it for him. David's face lit up as he read the words aloud. "Congratulations, Elijah Jackson. You have been selected to participate in Horizon Airlines' Career Exploration Program." Elijah's heart soared. He had done it. He had beaten the odds and earned a spot in the program. For the first time, his dream felt tangible, within reach. He hugged his father tightly, tears of joy streaming down his face. This was more than just an opportunity. It was validation, proof that his hard work and dedication had paid off. The morning of the program's first day, Elijah woke up before dawn, too excited to sleep. He put on his best clothes, pinned his special guest ID badge to his chest, and double-checked his bag to make sure he had everything he needed. His father drove him to the airport, offering words of encouragement along the way. "Remember, Elijah," David said, "this is your chance to show them what you're made of. Be confident, be respectful, and most importantly, be yourself." Elijah nodded, his heart pounding with anticipation. As they pulled up to the airport, he took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. This was it, the first step toward his dream. Miss Tanya Reynolds, a representative from Horizon Airlines HR department, greeted Elijah at the entrance. She was warm and welcoming, immediately putting him at ease. She explained the day's schedule, which included a tour of the airport, a visit to the control tower, and a session in the pilot's lounge, where he would have the chance to meet real pilots and learn about their experiences. Elijah's excitement grew with each passing moment. He couldn't believe he was actually here, walking through the halls of an airline, surrounded by people who shared his passion for aviation. Miss Reynolds led him to the pilot's lounge, a restricted area reserved for pilots and authorized personnel. She handed him a special access card and pointed to a comfortable seating area. Elijah nodded, his eyes wide with wonder as he took in his surroundings. The lounge was sleek and modern, with large windows offering a stunning view of the runway. A documentary about the history of commercial aviation played on a large TV screen, and Elijah immediately became engrossed in it. He sat down, his heart racing with excitement, completely unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon him. Elijah had been sitting in the lounge for about 20 minutes, absorbed in the documentary, when the door suddenly swung open with a loud bang. Startled, he looked up to see a woman in a crisp pilot uniform striding toward him. Her shoulders were adorned with 4 shiny gold stripes, signaling her rank as a captain. Her face was stern, her eyes cold and calculating as they locked onto Elijah. Elijah jumped to his feet, his heart pounding. I'm Elijah Jackson," he stammered. "I'm part of the Career Exploration Program. Miss Reynolds brought me here. She said I could wait for her." The woman, Captain Rebecca Whitman, narrowed her eyes, clearly unconvinced. She snatched the ID badge from Elijah's chest, inspecting it with a look of disdain. "This is a restricted area," she said coldly. "You don't belong here." Elijah's stomach churned with fear and confusion. "But ma'am, I have permission," Miss Reynolds said. "I don't care what Miss Reynolds said." Whitman interrupted, her voice rising. "This lounge is for pilots, not kids playing pretend." Before Elijah could respond, Whitman pulled out her radio and called security. "There's an unauthorized intruder in the pilot's lounge," she said, her tone dripping with contempt. "Get here immediately." Elijah's heart sank. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. How could this be happening? He had done everything right, followed the rules, waited patiently, and now he was being treated like a criminal. The room seemed to close in around him as curious eyes turned his way, their gazes filled with suspicion and judgment. As security arrived, Elijah tried to explain himself, but his words fell on deaf ears. Whitman's accusations had already painted him as a threat, and no one was willing to listen to his side of the story. He felt the weight of their prejudice pressing down on him, suffocating him. It wasn't just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was about who he was, a black teenager in a space where he wasn't expected to belong. Elijah's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. He thought of his father, of all the hours they had spent talking about aviation, of the dreams they had shared. He thought of the essay he had written, the passion and determination that had earned him a spot in the program. And now, in the blink of an eye, it all seemed to be slipping away. As security escorted him out of the lounge, Elijah's eyes welled with tears, but he refused to let them fall. He clenched his fists, his jaw tightening with resolve. This wasn't the end. He wouldn't let one person's prejudice destroy his dream. He would fight back, no matter what it took. Once outside the lounge, Elijah pulled out his phone and dialed his father's number with trembling hands. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, each ring stretching out like an eternity. Finally, his father's voice came through, calm and steady. Elijah's voice broke as he explained the situation, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Dad, they're saying I trespassed. They don't believe me. I don't know what to do." There was a brief pause on the other end, and then his father's voice, firm and resolute, cut through the chaos. "Stay calm, Elijah. I'm on my way. Don't let them intimidate you. I'll handle this." Elijah nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. His father was coming. He would make this right. But until then, Elijah knew he had to stay strong. He couldn't let Whitman's cruelty break him. He had worked too hard, come too far, to let his dream be crushed by prejudice. As he stood there, waiting for his father to arrive, Elijah made a silent promise to himself. No matter what happened, he would never give up on his dream. The sky was his destiny, and no one, not even Captain Rebecca Whitman, could take that away from him. The pilot's lounge, once a place of excitement and wonder for Elijah, had transformed into a battleground of tension and fear. Captain Rebecca Whitman's cold, accusing gaze bore into him like a dagger, and the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Elijah stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest, as the reality of the situation began to sink in. He was being treated like an intruder, a threat, in the very place he had dreamed of belonging. Whitman's voice cut through the silence like a whip. "What are you doing in here? This is a restricted area. Who let you in?" Elijah swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. I'm Elijah Jackson. I'm part of the Career Exploration Program. Miss Reynolds brought me here. She said I could wait for her." Whitman's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. She stepped closer, her presence intimidating. "Miss Reynolds? And where is she now?" She went to handle something. She said she'd be back soon." Elijah stammered, his voice trembling. Whitman's expression hardened. She reached out and snatched the ID badge from Elijah's chest, the strap snapping with a sharp sound. She examined it briefly before tossing it onto a nearby table. "This is a fake. You don't belong here." Elijah's stomach churned. "It's not fake. Miss Reynolds gave it to me this morning. You can check with her." "Enough!" Whitman barked, cutting him off. She turned to the small crowd that had gathered, her voice rising. "Everyone pay attention. This is a serious security breach. We have an unauthorized individual in the pilot's lounge. I need security here immediately." The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, their eyes shifting between Elijah and Whitman. Elijah felt their gazes like a physical weight, pressing down on him. He wanted to explain, to make them understand, but the words caught in his throat. How could he defend himself against such blatant prejudice? Within minutes, 2 security officers arrived, their expressions stern and unyielding. They approached Elijah, their presence towering and intimidating. One of them, a tall man with a sharp jawline, spoke in a firm, no-nonsense tone. "Young man, you need to come with us. We need to verify your identity and clarify the situation." Elijah's heart raced. He took a step back, his voice shaking but determined. "I didn't do anything wrong. I was allowed to be here. Miss Reynolds brought me in. Please, you can check with her." The security officer glanced at Whitman, who crossed her arms and nodded. "He's lying. That badge is fake, and he's clearly trespassing. Handle this immediately." The officer turned back to Elijah, his expression hardening. "Come with us, son. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Elijah's mind raced. He couldn't believe this was happening. He had followed the rules, waited patiently, and now he was being treated like a criminal. He looked around the room, hoping to see Miss Reynolds or someone who could vouch for him, but she was nowhere to be found. The crowd of pilots and airport staff watched in silence, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. As the security officers moved closer, Elijah felt a surge of panic. He pulled out his phone, his hands trembling as he dialed his father's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, each ring stretching out like an eternity. Finally, his father's voice came through, calm and steady. Elijah's voice broke as he explained the situation, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Dad, they're saying I trespassed. They don't believe me. I don't know what to do." There was a brief pause on the other end, and then his father's voice, firm and resolute, cut through the chaos. "Stay calm, Elijah. I'm on my way. Don't let them intimidate you. I'll handle this." Elijah nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. His father was coming. He would make this right. But until then, Elijah knew he had to stay strong. He couldn't let Whitman's cruelty break him. He had worked too hard, come too far, to let his dream be crushed by prejudice. As the security officers escorted Elijah out of the lounge, he felt the weight of their prejudice pressing down on him. It wasn't just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was about who he was, a black teenager in a space where he wasn't expected to belong. The stares of the crowd followed him, their whispers like a chorus of judgment. Whitman's voice echoed behind him, sharp and cutting. This is exactly why we can't afford to be careless. Aviation security is no joke. We have to be vigilant. Elijah's heart ached with the injustice of it all. He had done nothing wrong, yet he was being treated like a criminal. He thought of his father, of all the hours they had spent talking about aviation, of the dreams they had shared. He thought of the essay he had written, the passion and determination that had earned him a spot in the program. And now, in the blink of an eye, it all seemed to be slipping away. As he was led down the hallway, Elijah's mind raced. He couldn't let this be the end. He wouldn't let one person's prejudice destroy his dream. He would fight back, no matter what it took. The security officers brought Elijah to a small, dimly lit room and instructed him to sit down. The tall officer leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, while the others sat across from Elijah, a notepad in hand. "All right, let's start from the beginning," the officer said, his tone neutral but firm. "What's your name, and why were you in the pilot's lounge?" Elijah took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "My name is Elijah Jackson. I'm part of the Career Exploration Program at Horizon Airlines. Miss Reynolds from HR brought me to the lounge and said I could wait there for her." The officer scribbled something on his notepad. "And where is Miss Reynolds now?" "She went to handle something urgent. She said she'd be back soon," Elijah explained, his voice trembling but clear. The officer nodded, his expression unreadable. "And the ID badge you were wearing, where did you get it?" "Miss Reynolds gave it to me this morning. It's a special access card for the program," Elijah said, his heart pounding. The officer exchanged a glance with his colleague, then turned back to Elijah. "We'll need to verify that. In the meantime, you'll have to stay here." Elijah's stomach churned. He felt like he was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. He thought of his father, of the promise he had made to stay strong. He couldn't let this break him. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as Elijah sat in the small room, his mind racing. He thought of all the times he had dreamed of this moment, the chance to be in the pilot's lounge, to be surrounded by people who shared his passion for aviation. And now, instead of excitement, he felt only fear and despair. He thought of Captain Whitman, of the cold, calculating way she had accused him. He thought of the crowd in the lounge, their silent judgment. He thought of his father, of the strength and determination he had always shown. Elijah knew he had to channel that strength now, to hold on to the hope that his father would make this right. Finally, the door opened, and the tall officer stepped in. "All right, Elijah. We verified your story with Miss Reynolds. You're free to go." Elijah's heart leapt with relief, but the officer's next words crushed it. "However, Captain Whitman has filed a formal complaint. We'll need to investigate further. In the meantime, you're not allowed back in the pilot's lounge." Elijah's stomach dropped. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. But I didn't do anything wrong," he protested, his voice breaking. The officer's expression softened slightly. "I understand, son, but we have to follow procedure. You'll be notified of the outcome of the investigation." Elijah nodded numbly, his mind reeling. He had been cleared, but the damage had been done. His dream, once so close, now felt further away than ever. As Elijah stepped out of the room, he felt the weight of the day pressing down on him. He thought of Captain Whitman, of the way she had looked at him with such disdain. He thought of the crowd in the lounge, their silent complicity. He thought of his father, of the promise he had made to stay strong. Elijah knew this wasn't the end. He couldn't let one person's prejudice destroy his dream. He would fight back, no matter what it took. He would prove that he belonged in the skies, that no one could take that away from him. As he walked down the hallway, Elijah's resolve hardened. He would not be broken. He would not be silenced. He would rise above this, stronger and more determined than ever. The sky was his destiny, and no one, not even Captain Rebecca Whitman, could take that away from him. As security arrived, Elijah's fear grew. He tried to explain that Miss Reynolds had brought him to the lounge, but Whitman dismissed his claims, insisting he was lying. She even mocked him, suggesting his parents were janitors at the airport and threatening to have them fired. Elijah, trembling, called his father for help. Whitman's cruel words and the cold indifference of those around him made Elijah feel like his dream was slipping away. He stood frozen, tears welling in his eyes, as security prepared to escort him out. The injustice of the situation was overwhelming, and Elijah realized that his skin color had made him a target for Whitman's prejudice. Just as Elijah's hope was fading, his father, David Jackson, arrived with a team of FAA officials. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. David, a powerful and respected figure, confronted Whitman, demanding to know why she had accused his son without evidence. Whitman, now pale and flustered, tried to justify her actions, but David's stern demeanor silenced her. He revealed that Elijah's ID was valid and that Whitman's actions were based on bias, not facts. The FAA officials reviewed security footage, which clearly showed Miss Reynolds escorting Elijah into the lounge. Whitman's lies were exposed, and the room turned against her. David Jackson, as the FAA Administrator, took decisive action. He suspended Whitman from duty and ordered a full investigation into her conduct. The FAA officials revealed that this was not the first time Whitman had been accused of discriminatory behavior. Her career, once built on respect and authority, crumbled in moments. As security escorted her out of the lounge, the room fell silent, a stark reminder of the consequences of prejudice and abuse of power. Elijah, standing beside his father, felt a mix of relief and sadness. He had been vindicated, but the experience left a lasting impact on him. After the ordeal, Elijah was invited by Captain Amara Johnson, a black female pilot and advocate for diversity in aviation, to tour the cockpit of a Boeing 787. Her encouragement and support reignited Elijah's passion for flying. Meanwhile, David Jackson launched a nationwide campaign to promote diversity and eradicate prejudice in the aviation industry. Elijah became a youth ambassador, sharing his story to inspire others and spread the message that no dream should be hindered by race or background. Whitman's downfall served as a powerful lesson, and the aviation industry began to change, becoming more inclusive and fair. Elijah's journey, once marked by pain and injustice, became a symbol of hope and resilience, proving that with courage and determination, anyone can soar to new heights.